The Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture. I'm going to do a little volunteering, and today is orientation. This is Justin. What's your position here, Justin?
My name's Justin. I'm the office and volunteer manager here at CCUA. So I do all of our office stuff, bookwork, and HR stuff, but then I also run our volunteer programs. So do orientations and get people signed up for volunteer positions.
Which is what I'm doing today. So could you describe the CCUA for us, just kind of in a nutshell? What do y'all do here?
Sure. CCUA we're a nonprofit. One of the main things we do is we grow produce that we donate to local food pantries. That's what we'll kind of check out the gardens here today, but really CCUA envisions a community transformed by good food for all and the skills to grow it. So in a nutshell, that's really what we're trying to do, is teach people about good food and give them the skills to grow it on their own.
Yeah, which I think is a really big deal. I've been trying to make gardens for myself for a couple years now, and it's a multi-year experience just trying to get good at it, and then also having the genetics to have a real garden over the years. It's I would say maybe 5 years if you really want to start something for real. But with these sort of resources, it makes it accessible to anybody, which is awesome.
Yeah, and on our tour, we'll talk about one of our programs. It's called Opportunity Gardens, and that's actually a mentoring project, and we actually stick with those families for 3 years, kind of what you're saying, because we feel like people go really big the first year, and they fail, and then they're like, the gardening's not for me, I don't have a green thumb. So what we found is if we can stick with those families for 3 years, then hopefully by the end of the program, they've graduated and they've become successful lifelong gardeners is our goal.
That's what we want.
Yeah,
we want
get their kids involved and their families and everything else, because gardening's so much more than just growing food, right? It gets you outside, it's therapeutic. A lot of times you're out there meeting your neighbors, getting your kids out there. So
my kids, they love the fruit.
Right.
Especially raspberries, golden raspberries. That's what they're into right now.
Nice, yeah. We do taste testings at local schools and stuff, and a lot of times we'll do smoothies, they're raspberries and strawberries, but then we'll sneak a little kale or spinach in there.
Yeah.
And by the end, the kids are like, more kale, and so that's always cool, So, well, should we get started then?
Yeah, let's get to it.
Cool. Briefly, I'll talk about our pavilion here. So this is where the Columbia Farmers Market is. We help fundraise for this pavilion between the CCUA and the Columbia Farmers Market and Sustainable Farms and Communities. The one cool thing about this pavilion, I guess, is this whole parking lot used to just be asphalt. And since the 80s, the farmers have been meeting here, setting up their own tents and having the farmers market. And then in the wintertime, they would have to move off location. So with our new pavilion here, the farmers are able to meet here year round. The sidewalls protected during the wintertime, so they don't have to move in the wintertime. And then we just finished fundraising, and we've raised enough money to extend the pavilion to cover all of the concrete.
Oh, wow.
So within the next 2 years, all of our farmers out here will be under the pavilion, which will be key, because we've noticed on rainy days, the folks outside definitely don't get the same business that the folks inside do.
And it's been busy. I've been noticing it's always slammed. Everybody is filled up inside.
Yep.
And we're spilling over, which is great.
Yeah.
Not a lot of places have a farmer's market like this.
Right. And one cool thing that we think is cool about this whole park is this used to be the Boone County Fairgrounds. So way back in the day, in the 80s, maybe early 90s, this was the fairgrounds. We think it's really cool that we've been able to bring this park back to something agriculture. Just shout out if you have any questions. The pavilion, the whole park really was a private and public partnership. So we took donations from private donors, but we also get money from the parks. So there's a park tax that the voters of Columbia approved.
I approved it.
Right. We're lucky in Columbia to have a lot of good parks. So through that park tax, we were also able to get some money to build out this park as well. So this is our one-room schoolhouse. So we do lots of tours and stuff, field trips for kids. Through a program that's called Plants, Placing Learners, Agriculture, and Nature Together Sustainably. It's a long one. Plants. But this is our outdoor classroom. We've got some raised beds where the kids can actually plant and harvest. We've got some lettuce and stuff going right now. The outdoor classroom is where they can do lessons and things. We're currently also fundraising for a new office. So our next phase of fundraising will be to build a new office right here. So in this big green area will kind of be the hub of the ag park. So we'll have our offices there, but there'll also be a commercial kitchen, an event space that you can rent out, be very similar to the ripened pavilion out at Stevens.
Yeah.
And so we're excited about that because we hope to have a chef on site that can literally make food with the produce that we're growing and the produce from the farmer's market.
Yeah,
so
show you all the way from the garden to the table.
Exactly. Another kind of learning thing or hands-on learning opportunity is our crate garden. So our crate garden used to sit outside of Lucky's. It was in the parking lot. The main thing we do with our crate garden is we teach people that you don't need a yard to grow produce. You don't need a big yard to have a garden. You can literally grow things in containers, milk crates, buckets, drill holes in the buckets. You can plant tomatoes, all kinds of stuff. The advantage to the crate or the container gardens too is sometimes if they're small enough, you can actually move them around. So maybe you have a deck that is not fully sunlight. Maybe it's sunlight over here in the morning and sunlight over here in the afternoon. You can literally move these crates around if you need to. So with our crate garden, we did purchase all these crates. I had a dairyman out here and he was like real quick to point out that those crates aren't free. He thought we'd taken them all from Central Dairy, but we didn't. We actually purchased them all. And then we made some seating and stuff. But the idea is, like I say, just container gardens that people can, you know, grow on their own without a big yard.
Which is important. It's important to let people know that you don't have to have a big yard to grow.
Right.
It's nice if you do, and I'm definitely against the grass yard at this point in my life.
Right.
I'm teaching my kids, what is a grass yard doing for us? Nothing.
Right.
But, you know, what does do something is putting food out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're learning quick.
And these are nice too because you can set, or we can set our clients up, or people can set themselves up for success. So we can choose what compost and dirt goes into these crates. And so really you're setting yourself up for success instead of trying to grow in your soil that might be half clay or not healthy soil.
Yeah.
You can add your amendments, you can add your compost and stuff right to these crates, the container garden. So we do have a lesson going on inside, so we won't go into the one-room schoolhouse. I wanted to show you my stain job though, but other duties as assigned, we call them. But for the most part, all the 3rd and 5th graders come out here for field trips through the Columbia Public Schools, and then we also get some homeschoolers and some private schools that come out for tours and stuff too. So
nice, y'all opened it up for everybody.
Yeah. I guess they've got the spiral garden covered up because it got pretty cold last night, but this will be a spiral herb garden eventually. And so the idea is that the kids can come out here and learn about herbs. It also is another kind of example of what people can do in their yards, basically.
Yeah.
We hope to have pizza parties out here with the kids where they can literally pick fresh herbs, fresh tomatoes, greens, and make pizzas right here. And so it all goes back to that seed to plate thing and teaching the kids that like, that is going to go on your pizza. And what we've noticed is if we can get kids to grow salad and come out here and harvest lettuce, all of a sudden they want to eat that stuff. They really own it if they've helped grow it. So
I've said this on my channel many times. I don't like lettuce and greens from the store, but from my garden, I eat it every single day.
Exactly.
Every single day right now.
Yeah, we have a lot of our employees only eat what's in season. So they don't buy lettuce when it's not in season. They don't go to the grocery store. They don't eat bananas, for instance. They tend to eat what we can grow here in Missouri and when it's in season so that they're getting fresh produce and stuff.
Sense.
So
yeah.
But yeah, if you want to check out the raised beds here.
Swiss chard.
Yep, we got some Swiss chard going.
Some of my favorites.
Some kale, some lettuce. I think he's got some turnips going in that bed, and these might be seeded with some other stuff as well. So we also have built raised beds at the elementary schools here in town. And so we've built raised beds exactly like this at elementary schools through our farm to school program. So once again, the kids can really get involved in the schools. They can plant, they can harvest, they can eat.
I better eat this when it got.
There you go. I was gonna say, we get kids out here all the time that have never had a fresh tomato. And if we can get them to try a fresh tomato, then it changes their mind because they've only had tomatoes that have been on a nasty burger or that they bought at the store, which wasn't even ripe.
I don't like store tomatoes.
Nope, me neither. Exactly. And so
this was damaged. I got to say, this was damaged. It was falling off the plant. It had been damaged, so I'm eating it.
There you go. Swiss chard's one that we do a lot with the families, and a lot of people don't know what it is. We do a rainbow Swiss chard, so it's always interesting to get people like, well, what is that? It's really pretty, actually. And as soon as people learn that it's a food or something you can eat, right away that starts a conversation. So we have a lot of neighbors, or we have a lot of clients that have spoke to their neighbors because they have a garden, and that was kind of the only thing that brought the neighbors together. So
commercially, it's called bright lights. A lot of times they'll sell the seed packs as Swiss chard bright lights. which is the multicolor pack.
Oh, nice. Yeah, when we get over the greenhouse, I can show you. But we, for the most part, start all of our seeds, or start all of our plants from seed in our greenhouse. We do buy like potato slips and stuff, but pretty much all of our seed, or all of our plants, are started with seed. So. The community, including the Rotary clubs here in town, raised money and donated money for the playground. It's got the farm theme, so
Yeah,
it gets
got the strawberries.
Yep, gets kids in that farm again. So this is our Gordon D. Brown arbor. So this is our memorial arbor. Gordon Brown was a big volunteer here and a donor for years, and then passed away last year. His wife donated the money to build this arbor. Eventually it'll be covered in plants, and this is where we'll hang our memorial plaques. So when somebody donates to CCUA in memory of, eventually we'll have plaques and stuff here. So we're excited about that. I think it'll look really cool when we have the plants and stuff growing over it. This is another example of something our volunteers do. So we call it other duties as assigned, but our volunteers and staff helped build and stain this whole thing, and so that's kind of cool. Did you have I think I cut you off there.
Grapes? What you're gonna grow on here? Edibles?
Edibles, but I'm not actually sure. So that is actually a good question. I don't know that we're gonna do grapes. I've heard grapes are fairly hard to grow.
Yep. Yep, I'm trying to root some right now.
Yeah. We do have some blackberries over there in the corner, and we have a bunch of fruit trees out here. But this is our demonstration garden. So with our demonstration garden, basically what we've done here is we've built some raised beds. Eventually we'll have a chicken coop over here. And this is an idea to give people that are walking through the park exactly what they can do in their backyard. So we have these raised beds. We have different produce, garlic, kale, there's some spinach over there, some strawberries. We also, some of our employees come through AmeriCorps. And so with AmeriCorps, each of our AmeriCorps members also get a garden to take care of. So they get to choose and get the produce out of that. It's kind of a benefit that we give them or whatever.
Yeah.
This is also a good place to talk about our Opportunity Gardens program. So through Opportunity Gardens is a mentoring project. We work with families for 3 years. We give those families everything they need. It is families that are living with low income. So we meet with those families, check out their yard, get permission from the landlord if needed, and then a lot of times we build raised beds, and then we stick with those families for 3 years. So for 3 years, we mentor them, we give them all the tools, the seeds, the plants that they need. And like I said before, the goal is after 3 years that we can create those lifelong successful gardeners is the idea. So
yeah, because it can be hard starting out. It can be extremely difficult.
Exactly.
I had, well, I still can't grow tomatoes.
Right.
I haven't figured out a good spot for them yet. I keep trying different places, and I guess I'm not watering or fertilizing enough. I just need to build up my topsoil.
Yep.
Really.
Yeah.
I need some real topsoil and not hard pan clay.
Yes. Start them in you can do a bucket and then move them around or whatever. I do containers for my tomatoes at home. So
and I've had good success using essentially chemical fertilizers in buckets with Pro Mix or whatever, some non-soil growing medium. But I feel that's almost cheating.
Right.
Of course, anybody can use some super strong nitrogen-rich fertilizers as long as you get your pH right and you don't oversalt them. Then let's go grow something.
Yeah, exactly.
Grow something. But trying to do it in the ground, doing it like the old school days, like our parents used to have to do.
Yeah.
I feel that's the real way of growing food, personally. But not to discount growing in containers with liquid fertilizer.
Right. And that goes back to like setting the families up for success. So with the raised beds, we can control the mixture of compost and soil amendments. So we're not dependent on the family's yard, basically.
Yeah, which around in Columbia, a lot of the yards are just terrible.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Especially in public housing and in rentals. A lot of times they've literally brought fill dirt in for those yards.
Absolutely.
And there's no good soil at all.
If there was topsoil, they scraped it off and sold it to somebody else.
Exactly. The other thing we've noticed with the raised beds is if the family moves within that 3 years, we can actually take the bed apart and move it to their new home.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes the new tenants want the bed and then we just add another client. But we're currently gardening with about 100 families here in Boone County through our Opportunity Gardens program.
Awesome.
So there's some of that beautiful spinach. We used to grow a lot of it at the other farm. Really miss it. Had a real almost nutty flavor.
Really?
It's really high in magnesium as well, which is one of those good things.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've been doing here the last, I guess since last fall really, I've been seeding all my edges with kales and spinach and lettuces and everything that I just want to be growing wild.
Right.
I've just been overseeding everything.
Yeah.
It's starting to really pick up. I had a good bit of lettuce and kale come through this year.
Nice.
That wouldn't have been around otherwise.
Right.
I can tell you that much.
I mean, for the most part, seeds are cheap, right?
Seeds are cheap.
It's like overseed.
Yep.
If you get a bunch of starts, thin them out, you know, so you got some room to grow. I tend to overcrowd my garden sometimes. But
I do too. I'd rather not see any soil.
Yeah. So this is our food forest. So this will be our walking food forest. It'll obviously be years from now, but like I say, this is a public park. But our goal one day is that people will be able to walk through here and pick some fresh fruit or some nuts. So we have various fruit trees and nut trees growing out here. We've got some apple trees, some pecan trees, some peach and pear trees. I believe we actually have a fig tree somewhere. Some pawpaws.
Raspberries? Are these raspberries down
I
here?
think they are raspberries.
Yeah, that's raspberry.
Yeah, and so, yeah, the whole idea is we've built these paths and it would all be grown up and people can literally walk through the walking food forest and, you know,
that's cool.
Eat some fresh fruit while they're here in the park.
This is where I'm going for all my spaces, except for on the edges where I've been throwing out the lettuces, the leafy greens, but I'm trying to build up the same sort of layering. Big tree, some sort of keystone maybe, just whatever, something that's really big like an oak or a maple or something like that, and then having the fruit trees or the nut trees down from it, and then maybe some hazelnuts down from that.
Nice.
And then the currants and raspberries and everything, and then on the very edges I throw all the leafy greens on the south side pretty much. So far it's working out, but we're 3 years out from
right
anything having any sort of harvest.
It's almost like companion gardening with trees.
Companion gardening with trees.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And we'll see. Maybe I put everything too tight together. Maybe I didn't put them tight enough, but we won't know until we try. So
right.
I'm trying.
Right.
Trying everything.
Well, you talked about getting your soil prepared, and so this is actually a big project that our volunteers did last year. This was called our sheet mulching project.
Yes.
So we literally did, I think there's, we also called it, I guess, our lasagna project, but I think there's 7 layers here.
Yeah.
So we originally started with some cover crop here. We had some hairy vetch and some clover, and some, I'll think of it in a minute, it has some real pretty flowers, chicory.
Yeah.
So we had all that growing here for a while, and that was really just to get that soil loosened up and prepared. And then we came through with a layer of compost and straw, and then they did another layer, I believe, of compost and straw. We also had some cardboard under there to stop all the Bermuda grass. So this park was full of Bermuda grass, which is almost impossible to keep out. So we tend to kill it off with cardboard or some type of covering. I will say everything we do is organically. We're not certified here. We don't need to be certified because we're donating all of our produce. It's also it's a real process to get certified for organic gardening. But when our volunteers are here learning, they're going to learn about organic farming because that's what we do. But
you want to spray a bunch of chemicals on everything all the time?
No.
Come on, man. Come on, nothing.
Not at all.
Chemical taste.
Right, especially out here in a public park. I will say our main goal is to get people to grow their own food. So we do try to avoid conflicts of interest. If we have a volunteer that's like, I put so much Miracle Grow, I've got the tomatoes this big, we're just like, good job, man, you're growing your own food, right?
Yeah.
Because that's our main goal, but we do practice organic farming and we feel like that it's the best.
Yeah,
so
I will say, I've pondered this a lot. Maybe the worst thing isn't using petroleum distillates to fertilize our food. If we're going to talk about using petroleum distillates for something, maybe going to fertilizers isn't the worst thing that we could be doing. But I do feel that maybe natural gardening is maybe a little better long term. It's more sustainable if you're not just constantly salting your earth and then 5 years later you wonder, why is nothing growing? Why is everything dead? Because you never built topsoil, because there's no amendments to it. There's no organic matter in the soil. You've been throwing salt on it, and that's but again, maybe that's not the worst use we could have for petroleum distillates. It's probably better than making a bunch of phones and stuff, I guess.
Right. Well, and that's like those cover crops is what's, like you said, putting those nutrients back into the garden. So
now, I think I saw daikon radish as well.
Yes.
When y'all were doing that, I remember seeing those huge radishes
Yes.
out here. I was like, how do I get?
And those will dig,
like
those go deep down, and so they really loosen up the soil. We also did some sorghum out here, which everybody thought was corn, but it was just sorghum.
I did too. I thought it was corn.
The city was actually really on to us about our cover crop, wanting us to mow it down. And we were like, just give it time, and then it bloomed, and the chicory, and a lot of it had flowers on it, and so then they were like, oh wait, that looks nice. You know, everybody thought it was just weeds, basically.
The city comes out, they're like, you know, we got this ordinance here, and you can't have anything over 18 inches. They're like, come on, it's the freaking farm. It's the farm out here. It's not just weeds. Yeah.
But this is our production area here.
Hold on, I'm getting distracted.
Nice. What'd you find?
Let's see what this is. Oh, pomegranate.
All right. See, I didn't even know that one was over there. I saw there were some plum trees as well. But this is our production area.
Yeah, this is the real farm.
This is the real farm.
Yeah.
This is where we have our planting for the pantry program. So all the produce grown in this garden is donated to local food pantries. Some of it goes to the food bank, central pantry. Some of it also goes to veterans and things.
How many thousands of pounds?
So here last year we grew a little over 24,000, but we have three farms. So between all three of our farms, we were able to grow 35,000 pounds of fresh produce.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fresh produce, lots of greens. So you can imagine how many pounds and pounds of greens or kale that is. Obviously that stuff doesn't weigh very much.
That's a lot.
We grow just about everything out here with the exception of corn. We don't grow corn. We feel like there's a lot of corn already out there.
There's enough people to grow corn.
It's not that nutritious when it comes down to it.
Right.
It also takes up a lot of space for the product that you get. So that's one of the few things we do not grow. This time of year, obviously, we're doing lots of greens. We actually had to cover everything up yesterday because we had a freeze warning last night. So we had our row covers, and it was so windy yesterday. Even I was out here as an office person. Our whole team was out here trying to get these rows covered and fighting with the wind or whatever. So,
what do y'all do as far as making the soil fertile? Because this is traditional row cropping. Are you tilling it all, or is this a no-till situation? And otherwise, how are you continuing to add nutrients and organic matter to the soil? What do y'all do out here?
So for the most part, we try to practice no-till gardening. But originally this was a soccer field. So we did a lot of tilling in with our tractor. I think we dumped 2 semi-truckloads full of compost on this area.
I remember seeing the mounds a few years ago.
We had volunteers help us spread it, and then the tractor came and tilled it in. And so we did do that, and then we also did the cover crops here to get all that soil ready. We did a year of cover crops before we actually grew anything. Now that it's established, for the most part, we're just hand tilling. We do add compost every year. We do winterize it at the end of the year and cover things with straw and stuff. We also have a few winter crops that we do, garlic, scallions. A lot of that stuff is actually planted in the late fall, and then we harvest that this time of year. We have it closer to summer. But as far as maintaining, we do have soil amendments. We could check with our gardeners on what those are. I don't know the exact names. They are like organic fertilizers and stuff. So we do have some soil amendments that we add every year. And then we're constantly adding in that fresh compost and stuff.
Yeah. So just from the top, just like you were saying with the lasagna layers, you're building from the top, letting it go in, and then if you're not doing a tilling situation, you're not losing all that to hyper aeration every year.
Exactly. Then we do the drip irrigation and stuff. We do some direct seeding. For the most part, I think everything out here today we started in our greenhouse by seed. But some things that we do direct seeding are carrots, I think some radishes. There's some things that we do direct seed out here. But for the most part, we start everything in our greenhouse.
Very nice, yeah. And it's labor intensive to do that, but you have a really high germination rate, and then you know exactly how many plants you can come out here and plant.
Yes, yeah, and it's another, we call them hands-on learning opportunities. So it's another opportunity for our volunteers to learn exactly what's going on out here. So it's always cool when our volunteers get involved with the actual starting the seeds all the way to planting, and a lot of them are still here when we harvest. And so they're literally seeing and are a part of that whole cycle.
That's cool.
So we also have our veterans farm. I just want to point it out because that is where we started at. The Our Veterans Urban Farm is a partnership with the VA hospital here. CCUA actually started at the corner of Smith and Fay on a lot that is about 1 1/3 acres. We'd been gardening there for about 10 years until we took this as our second location, and this is now our main location. But the main thing we do over at our Veterans Urban Farm is we work with veterans. We have veterans that come out there for therapy, for job training. We've actually started Tai Chi classes out there. They're actually doing a mushroom workshop today. You guys might just stop by there. I don't know if you have to sign up, but you might just go check it out. They've got somebody over there teaching how to cultivate and grow mushrooms.
Nice.
And so once again, it goes back to what we were saying, like gardening is so much more than just growing your own food.
Yeah.
It really is therapeutic, and it really does bring people together and gets people talking and sharing meals together, which is everybody eats, right?
I love the therapy part of it.
Yes.
I try to spend almost all of my free time outside, not necessarily in the garden, but just outside and not playing on my phone, doom scrolling all day.
Right. Right.
Not good for you.
Yes. And with our veterans garden, it becomes also veterans working with other veterans, and they're able to share stories while they're working in the garden. And so it becomes a very safe and comfortable space because you're not in an office around a table. You're next to rows of produce that you're growing, and all of a sudden that becomes a very comfortable and safe space to share those stories and
stuff. And if you don't feel comfortable, you can just walk away.
Right.
There's no door.
Exactly.
There's no door.
Exactly. So yeah, we work our way through the greenhouse if you want. This is Clint and Rafa, two of our employees. Clint's our farm manager. Rafa's one of our AmeriCorps. So one of the cool things I've found with working here is, so Clint, for instance, who's our farm manager, he originally came through us as a volunteer. He was actually one of the first volunteers I signed up in 2016. He was in college. He has since then, he volunteered with us through his college career. Then he joined Peace Corps, went and worked on a farm in South America. Then he came back and worked at a local farm here, Happy Hollow, and now he's on staff. And so it's really cool for me to see our volunteers come through and get this hands-on learning opportunities and learn about things they're passionate about, and then eventually have the opportunity to join our staff.
Yeah.
And so we have 3 or 4 employees that have actually started as volunteers that are now on staff.
That's
so
cool. So you got a nice patch of dandelion out here.
Oh yeah, so it's another spot we had cover crop going.
Yeah.
I think they might do sweet potatoes here this year, but I'm not sure. And they've got another soil project going on the other side where they've added lots of biochar and a bunch of other soil amendments.
Cool. That's one thing I'm interested in is biochar.
Yeah, I can get you in contact. There's a retired gentleman who's been working with us that is really into soil health, and he's written up several documents and stuff about biochar and things to add to your soil health. And I can even share the report he shared with us.
All kinds of lettuces.
Yeah, so these are our starts. They're out here hardening off. But like I said, we start all of our plant starts, for the most part, we start from seed. In our greenhouse, I can show you, we've got a germination chamber that's completely dark and high humidity to get those seeds sprouted. And then they go out into our greenhouse, and then they come out here and harden off before they go into the garden. A lot of this stuff you can see is also marked OG, so a lot of this is for our other programs, so Opportunity Gardeners. So some of these plants will go directly to families for their raised beds. Some of them are marked plants, so some of them will go to school gardens. So a lot of the starts don't just go here, but they're going everywhere.
Everywhere. You could really have high production in a small space here.
Yes, and it's so much bigger than our old one. We could go around and see if the fans kick off, or we could go in right now.
Let's go in right now.
Okay, so I know I can't control the fans because they're temp. So this is our greenhouse. So once again, with our volunteers, we're able to start a lot of these plants from seed. We have these soil block makers. We have a mix of compost and soil. They kind of press it down and then press out the blocks.
Oh, it's got the dibble on there too.
Yep, exactly, and that's where the seed would go. And then we end up with these nice blocks. Whoops. And then we cover the top of them with vermiculite to keep that moisture in, so they look like brownies, but they're not brownies.
Yeah, don't eat them.
Don't eat them.
Borage, sorrel, roselle, chives, kale, dock, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Looks like these are a lot of herbs. We've also got some collards started.
Ooh. Favorite of mine. Some Swiss chard. I see bright lights right there.
Swiss chard, bright lights. Yep, exactly. Collards is something that we grow a lot here. We donate a lot. A lot of our opportunity gardeners families want and grow collards.
I love collards.
Collards is not something you can find in the store for some reason. And so what we've noticed anyway.
One place over by the shop. Which one is that? Mosier's.
Oh, really?
Mosier's
okay.
collard
Interesting.
greens. That's where I go. Whenever I need them.
We actually have a board member that also starts collards for us every year and then donates to them because we have such a high demand for collards and have a hard time finding them. So yeah, I have to check that out and also tell our OG families.
It's more common in the South.
Yes.
Than it is up here.
Exactly. Around
here, maybe you find mustard greens or something like that in the store. But hey, we got a little adventitious shoot down there.
Right, it is coming out of there.
Got ourselves a little.
Coming right out of the crack.
Little something. It's like some lettuce.
Something else we start from seed and grow is kohlrabi. I don't know if are you familiar with kohlrabi? Kohlrabi is a vegetable that I was not familiar with till I started here at CCUA. We also call it like the alien vegetable. It's kind of a bulb, and then it has these like leaves that come off of it. It's part of the same family as like your cabbages and your broccolis and stuff. Brassica.
I just learned about this. Yes, brassicas, even
yes.
kale, same family
kale,
as kale.
Exactly. And it kind of, to me, tastes like the stalk part of broccoli.
Okay.
But you can eat the whole plant, and it's kind of a bulb, and when it's ready, it kind of comes out of the ground. We donate a lot of that to the food pantry. We have a lot of refugee families in our programs, as well as a lot of refugee families that use the food pantry, and that was a vegetable they were very familiar with. So the Central Pantry actually, a couple of years ago, asked us to grow more kohlrabi. So we actually grow a lot of kohlrabi, and so it's kind of something that our volunteers get to learn about because a lot of people don't know about kohlrabi.
Yeah,
so
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, you'll have to look it up. We don't have any right now, but I'll have to show it to you.
This
it's
is
interesting.
a pretty cool setup here.
I'm not crazy about it, but
this is like a flood and drain table, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these can be, there's drains there. These can be flooded, and then we can basically you're watering the plants from the roots up, so they can be flooded and drained. These also have hot water pipes running underneath them. So in the early spring or late fall, we can actually heat these tables, so you don't have to use heat mats. So sometimes when it gets cold enough, you need to keep those starts warm. And so that's something that we found very economical and actually easier to use than the heat mats that you have to plug in and stuff. And then we have a germination chamber, which we won't open it. They probably got some stuff started. But in here they've got just basically a dark closet that's high humidity, and that's where a lot of the seeds will germinate before they come out here. So.
And it's just like racks and racks and racks,
yep.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's just racks, and then like I say, they're able to maintain the humidity and stuff in there.
And it's like a real farm here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's so much bigger than our old spot. Our old spot we were about a third. I think the whole park out here is like maybe 10 acres, but I think we're actually, we're not farming on 6 acres, but we're probably using about 6 acres. So it's kind of interesting because our employees will be like, where's so-and-so? And it used to be like, oh, he's over there. And now it's like we have to hunt them down because like you said, we're kind of on a real farm or whatever. Hello. This is our water retention bay. So when we added all this concrete, we had to show where all that water runoff was going to go. So we built a water retention bay. It's full of native plants that like a lot of water, so it's really a big rain garden.
I've taken some seeds from your native plants here and there.
Nice.
Have a little bit of genetic diversity, and I figured this year I'll come back and bring some seeds from mine.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Something else we're excited about this year is we got a grant from the Grow Native program. So we'll be planting, this will all be native flowers this year. So we'll have a little, nice flower garden that'll all be natives. This is that soil project where we've added biochar and lots of different layering and aspects of soils on the rows. Last year we planted about 1,000 sweet potatoes here. So we had a lot of sweet potatoes. I don't know if they're going to do sweet potatoes here. This is also, we've noticed it gets really wet here, so I don't know if we'll do the sweet potatoes here again. But one of our volunteers is really interested in soil health, and so he's been out here testing the soil and adding different amendments and biochar. And so we're really excited to kind of get the results of that soil project.
Yeah.
And see what we can grow here. So.
Do you remember the poundage of your sweet potatoes last year?
I don't, but I can look it up.
Probably a lot.
It was a lot. I will say one of our farm stories is we grew a 10-pound sweet potato. You might have seen the picture in the slideshow.
I saw, yeah.
We were passing it around like a football. It was 9.8 pounds.
Wow.
We like to share those farm stories. So if you're out here volunteering, you pull up a giant turnip or something, then definitely take pictures, send it to us. We love the farm stories and showing off them giant vegetables. So,
yeah.
Do you want to go around?
Yeah, I might as well.
Okay.
Run into the classroom over here.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff over here too that is kind of hidden.
Got more trees.
Yeah.
More trees out
We've added trees. Something that's, I guess, kind of interesting, and you probably know a lot of because you probably battled with it at one of your homes, is this whole section was full of honeysuckle.
Yeah.
So we literally cut out the honeysuckle. We had volunteers helping us. We put the whatever on the the cut marks to kill it or whatever.
Yep.
The city also did some clearing, but honeysuckle is very invasive.
Very.
So it was a lot of work to get rid of that. We're hoping it won't come back, but.
Well, if you can get your seed load high enough of all the good plants, then you won't have a seed load of the bad plants that you don't want.
Right.
At least that's the hope.
Suffocate them out, basically.
Yeah, suffocate them out with all the good seeds.
Yeah, and so that's the two big things we battled with out here was the honeysuckle and the Bermuda grass.
Yeah.
Because it was so established in those soccer fields that were over there.
Absolutely.
We have our signs here, so basically the idea is that families can come through and almost do a lesson of their own by walking our trails and checking out the various signs.
Awesome.
Like we've talked about, this is our kind of info sign on native plants. We actually have a field trip today, and so when the kids come through here, they learn about native plants and pollinators and the importance of those pollinators.
Yeah.
I bet that's what they're talking about right now. So they kind of go through here and look and learn about the different plants and then kind of debrief and do an actual lesson. So.
Yeah.
We had a fox living down here.
Really?
Yeah, he would tour the farm. I guess it was last fall. I assume he was living down here. I actually don't know where he was living, but he would just like hang out by our straw. And I'm sure he was picking off mice and stuff.
Yep. Yep, I bet there's plenty of mice around here.
Oh yeah.
Lots of spots for them to hide.
Yes, we've battled with them a little bit at the one-room schoolhouse. So we've established some blackberries here. We actually had blackberries last year, so I bet we'll have a pretty good crop this year.
Oh man, these have grown.
Yeah, they've grown a lot. These are the domesticated kind, so they don't have thorns.
Thornless, yeah.
So they're thornless blackberries, which is really nice when it makes for easy picking, as you know.
It does.
I've picked a lot of wild blackberries and I enjoy it, but you definitely come out with cut up arms and stuff. So
all the blackberries that I have planted, they're the native, very thorned. Very, very thorned, and it looks like these are just as vigorous. Honestly, the canes are just as fat as the ones that I had put out. Although I will say the deer population is so heavy at my house that I almost had to do the thorned ones just so they'd keep off for enough years to get established.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
that was my biggest worry, and they're still getting beat up by the rabbits and the deer and everything, but they don't eat the thorns, so it keeps them off of them just enough.
Right. Yeah, we had a deer problem at our other farm. We planted a whole bunch of apple trees, and they were coming through and just eating the buds and the leaves off of them. He actually had to put an electric fence up around them.
The solution is to eat the deer.
Right.
Not so easy in town.
Right.
Oh yeah, these canes.
So yeah, these have actually really taken off because if you came through last year, we got a few blackberries, but I bet we'll get quite a few blackberries this year.
You're gonna have probably tens of pounds of blackberries this year, if not more.
Yeah. We also have planted some pawpaw trees over there. One of the things that we've kind of done to attract those pollinators is we've got birds, we've some bees, some like bee hotels, I guess is what they were calling them. We've built some bird houses, some bat houses as well. So trying to bring the nature back here, obviously, as well. And it helps to add to those programs and those lessons for the kids as well.
Absolutely, making it as dense as possible.
Yeah. I don't know if we got anything over here, but last year we had one of our AmeriCorps team members, he actually inoculated and grew a bunch of mushrooms down here. So I don't think it's that time of year, but we had wine caps and some oyster mushrooms grow here last year, so that was pretty cool.
That is.
And then the other thing that we did that I've just recently learned about, it looks like they already took it down, but Some of our members went to a tree tapping court or workshop and learned to tap maple trees. And in that workshop, they learned you can also tap black walnut trees.
Really?
And so we had a black walnut tree tapped. I guess it was over there. And we got the sap out of it. And one of our employees tried to make some syrup, but it cooked down and you didn't have enough of it, basically. So we haven't made the syrup yet, but we were all kind of tasting the black walnut sap. It was almost like sugary water. It was pretty interesting. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But I mean, that's something like I learn something new here every week. And that was something I learned. I was like, black walnut trees, and you tap them, and apparently you can make syrup out of them. So
well, that's why I'm coming here to volunteer. I just want to learn some stuff.
Exactly. It's hands-on learning opportunity. So
this definitely looks like a place where mushrooms are going to be found.
Yeah. So here they're doing a lesson. It looks like they're probably searching for something, pollinators maybe, or native plants. So, trying to think. I think that's, for the most part, the tour of the farm. As far as volunteering, the way our volunteer shifts work is they're called scheduled volunteer shifts. So our volunteers pick a shift, and then they're expected to come every week to that same shift. That helps our farm managers be prepared. They know how many people are coming, they know how much work is coming, or how much work they can do in that time period. We used to do drop-in volunteer shifts, but what we found is they're very hard to manage. One week we might have no volunteers, and then all of a sudden our farm crew has a ton of work to do. And then the next week we might have 10 volunteers, and all of a sudden we didn't bring enough tools, or there's not enough work to do. So we switched to the scheduled volunteering, and then we also do group volunteering. So any group can sign up for a one-time volunteer shift. Groups can be as less, or has to be 5 people up to 15 people. And then a group can come out here or to our veterans farm and do a 3-hour shift. And so we get a lot of businesses that do that. We actually have Shelter coming out on Friday. That's been a great partnership because they're literally right across the street. So we're hoping that Shelter will come over more. They've also sponsored and donated some of our events. And yeah, we're excited about finishing out the pavilion, and hopefully in a couple of years we'll have a new office building. Well, hey John, thanks for coming out for our orientation. Excited to have you out here volunteering this year. If you yourself are interested in volunteering or want to get involved with Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture, go to our website, columbiaurbanag.org. All the information is there. We also have a lot of, we have a video series. It's called Farm Your Yard. So if you're interested in getting started in volunteering, that's a great place to volunteer. It's also a great place to learn about starting your garden. And so, yeah, come out and visit us. This is a public park, so please come out and check out what we got going on here in Columbia.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me out today. I really appreciate your time.
For sure.
And just showing us the whole bit out here. I had a lot of interesting questions for myself, so
yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
If there are any more questions for the Holmes Hobbies or my personal channel or wherever this ends up landing, put your comments down below. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.